symbols on the path of illumination may have true connections to secret societies.
Symbolically, Egypt is the source for the Illuminati symbols that are so significant in the mystery of angels and demons.
Angels and Demons starts with Robert Langdon, the main character, dreaming of Egypt. I think this is Dan Brown using this device within the novel to draw us into the idea that Egypt and Egyptian symbolism is going to play a very important part in this book.
In both Rome and Vatican City, numerous Egyptian obelisks like these sit in open display. Their origins are pagan, yet here they are in one of the most religious sites on earth. The reason they are here goes back to the very beginning of modern Christianity.
The obelisks within Rome seem odd on the surface. You walk around Rome, you see obelisks. There are actually 13 obelisks within Rome. These obelisks account for more obelisks than are actually standing within Egypt.
In Angels and Demons, the obelisks also help to form the path of illumination that Robert Langdon uncovers. Professor Eric Johnson is a religious history scholar at UCLA. He suggests there's a reason that Egyptian mysticism was very influential in Christian-dominated Europe, and why such symbols would have been used by secret societies.
There is a fascination with Egyptian culture, or at least Egyptian philosophy, during the Renaissance. Renaissance humanists thought that the Egyptians were the source of very, very ancient wisdom that had been lost. And so there was this attempt to recover this ancient knowledge and ancient wisdom.
I think the obelisk in St. Peter's Square weighs about 180,000 tons. And so they had to construct massive casings in order to house it, to put it on a kind of causeway and move it, even if it was just several hundred meters. It was a colossal undertaking, thousands of men, horses, and you name it, in order to achieve the moving.
It is at the foot of this obelisk where one of Dan Brown's most gruesome murders takes place. The final clue is left by Bernini, who created this square in 1656 to hold 300,000, a staggering number for its day, and a testament to the power of the church. It is this elliptical relief laid in the center of the square by the obelisk, the West Ponente, wind.
This stands in St. Peter's Square. It's on one side of the grand obelisk there in the square, the West Ponente, and it really just represents the idea of the wind blowing from the west wind. There are certain Christian symbolic references here that you could make and you could put into that.
What Dan Brown had in his book about the Illuminati, what makes them a little bit more on the edge, a darker edge of things, is the fact that a lot of their symbology and the way they went about things and some of their so-called rituals, they borrowed a lot of their symbology and that kind of stuff from Egyptians, from Babylonians, which everybody was doing that at the time.
I would probably catch some flack for saying this, but it's quite obvious to any student of the Bible that the Bible, of course, on which Christianity is based, is actually a hodgepodge of ancient oral traditions, old stories. I give you one classic example is the story of Noah and the ark and taking in the animals. This is a story that dates back to the Sumerian tablets that predate the Bible by probably at least 4,000 years. And in the Sumerian tablets, we have the exact same story.
The church appropriated many symbols. There are some scholars who believe that the Christian cross symbol is actually an appropriation of the Egyptian Ankh symbol, which, as you know, is like a cross but with a rounded top, but it was worn as crosses are worn today. The image of Christ as Good Shepherd, the young boy holding the sheep, that's an appropriated symbol as well from ancient times.
Egyptian religion and what we know as modern-day Christianity only fundamentally differ in a few points, really. Egyptian religion was a religion of symbolism. Christianity, you could argue, is a religion of symbolism too. We have the symbol of the cross, for instance, which is probably the best-known symbol that we have in the world today.
Experts suggest that one major difference separates Christianity from Egyptian religion: the belief in dualism, especially good and evil. This theme runs throughout Angels and Demons. It also accurately describes the epic battle between the church and science, between the Illuminati and organized religion.
The Egyptians really didn't see things in forms of black and white. They didn't see things as a yin and yang type of scenario. It was shades of grey. You had to have one to have the other. Order and chaos, they must sit side by side. Horus and Seth, these two characters from the Egyptian pantheon of gods, must be together in order to give us completeness in the world.
But the Christian idea is that you have the good God and you have the devil, and that, one is ultimately totally good and one is totally bad. Well, even Set, the ancient Egyptian god, wasn't totally bad. He had his place in the pantheon of gods and a place in the welfare of men, even, representing that part of men and women and representing the balance. The Egyptians were very big on balance, whereas Christianity isn't.
In Christian elements of religion, you really do have a definite black and white, and it's used in a very different sense to this idea of balance. You have heaven and hell, you have God and the devil, and it's a case of you must take your choice. You must pick, are you with us or against us? And it's this element to Christianity that really is one of the most fundamental differences to the earlier Egyptian religious iconography.
So this is another way in which Rome transformed itself into a sacred center for the entire empire, and so all the gods that were venerated in the empire were venerated in that temple. Later on, after Christianity becomes legalized and then later becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire, it was normal for a lot of these old pagan temples to be reconverted to become Christian.
It's one of these very pagan temples that became one of the most famous basilicas in Rome, the Pantheon. Hundreds of thousands of tourists flock here every year, yet few likely know that when they look up, they are looking at a demon hole. Many now, however, may think of it as an Illuminati landmark.
The Pantheon has a large hole in its roof, and there's actually a false trail that leads Langdon and Vittoria to the tomb of Raphael.
This so-called demon's hole in the temple shows yet again a pagan symbol remade as a Christian symbol. Another example of dualism, good versus evil.
They think one of the murders is actually going to take place there. It doesn't take place there. But what's interesting is that they bring into this part of the story the idea of the demon's hole. And this demon hole, they equate with the roof of the Pantheon.
Historian Simon Cox believes that the path of illumination may be real, at least in one sense.
I think the path of illumination that Dan Brown highlights in his book is a real, it's something that has been used throughout history, although maybe not in the context that Brown is actually bringing it forward within Angels and Demons. The idea behind neophytes, behind initiates actually walking a path, metaphorical, real, is something that we do find symbolically throughout history.
As the Vatican continued to rule, evidence suggests that the Illuminati stayed underground for centuries. Their goal of achieving enlightenment through science would slowly take a dark turn. A grand conspiracy was planned, a plan for world domination.
Well, we've all heard that knowledge is power, but secret knowledge is even more powerful. And the Illuminati, if they still call themselves that, is a movement whose basic philosophy is the end justifies the means.
Conspiracy theorists have concluded that the modern-day Illuminati are a powerful entity in the world today, even if they no longer carry the name.
They will do anything to further their agenda. Kill, maim, destroy, lie, cheat, steal, whatever. And this is quite effective because they will pose as anything. They're liberals, they're conservatives, they're fascists, they're communists, they're Democrats, they're Republicans. They're anything that will further their agenda, and this